Good afternoon and welcome to the Yale Centre for British Art's online series, Artists in Conversation. I'm Lucinda Lax, Curator of Paintings and Sculpture at the Yale Centre, and it's my great pleasure to welcome artist Eva Rothschild to the programme today. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. Please note that this programme will be recorded. Your camera and sound are muted and will remain so throughout the programme. We will be using the Q&A function located on your navigation bar to gather your questions for Eva, and they will be answered at the end of the programme. But please feel free to submit your questions at any time. If you would like closed captioning, a live transcript is available by clicking the icon on your navigation bar. Yale University acknowledges that Indigenous people and nations, including Mohican, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Chattacot, Golden Hill, Paugussett, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquin-speaking people have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honour and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these people and nations and this land. Eva Rothschild was born in Dublin in 1971. She works in a variety of materials, including aluminium, fabric, Jesmonite, and leather. Her work is primarily sculptural, involving conceptual and sociopolitical ideas alongside traditional making. The works often reference minimalist sculpture of the 1960s and 1970s and classical architecture. Her practice explores the relationships between ideas of civilization and the power of looking. Rothschild also works on major public and outdoor commissions. In 2014, Rothschild was elected as a Royal Academician to the Royal Academy of Arts in London. In 2019, she represented Ireland at the 58th Venice Biennale. She has held numerous solo exhibitions worldwide. In 2017, Rothschild's work Empire was unveiled at the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden as part of the redeveloped Walker Art Center campus, marking her first permanent outdoor work in the United States. Her work is included in many collections worldwide. She lives and works in London. Eva, you're an artist who is continually pushing the boundaries of your practice, with the result that your output is so incredibly rich and diverse, but also uncompromising in its ambition and inventive scope. I wanted to begin our conversation today by looking at a selection of works from across your career that I think really speak to the different sides and concerns of your work. And to give our audience today a sense to start with of what really drew you to focus on sculpture as your medium. So let me turn to our first slide. So this is a really early piece from your career, a photograph from 1997. And I'm guessing that this was probably made during the first year of your master's degree at Goldsmiths College in London. So I'm guessing it's probably going to rake up lots and lots of memories. I find the message so sort of deeply stirring and intriguing, and it can be read on so many different levels. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about this work, as well as your time as a student in London. And in particular, what were the themes and concerns that you wanted to work on at this time? And why did that prompt you to want to start your career in London?
So I should just say that I think I made this just before I went to London. I think I did start my master's in London in 97, but this was made when I was doing a residency in Amsterdam, which was a residency given to me by the Scottish Arts Council, because I've been living in Glasgow, having moved there. So obviously I'm from Dublin, as you said. I did my undergraduate in Belfast, and then I spent some years in Glasgow, which was a really important time for me because I met a lot of people there who I still work with today, notably Toby Webster from the Modern Institute. And I think that being in Glasgow really opened me up to the idea of kind of artists driving their own practice and their own, the conditions under which they could show, and not really kind of waiting for opportunities to open up for them. It's a very kind of, get on with it, sort of, get it done yourself sort of art scene that I wasn't really aware of as much. And that had a huge influence on me. And, I would count that as one of the most important experiences in my sort of formative time as an artist. And so when I went to Amsterdam on this residency, I had a kind of year on my own, essentially, in Amsterdam. And as well as doing all the fun things that Amsterdam offers, I did make quite a lot of work. And what's funny about this piece is it's really kind of nothing almost, but it did seem like, I think it's the first image that's on my website. It just sort of seems like a kind of, I suppose it's like a statement of intent or a sort of starting point. And really it was just spray painted onto a piece of paper and then stuck on the wall and photographed and then rephotographed. And then it sort of became quite sort of like a kind of touchstone for me. And I don't know if I ever showed it. I don't know if I ever did anything with it. I don't know where it is. But it's kind of nice that you picked it out, because I also picked it out as a sort of starting point. And I think that as an artist, especially as a sculptor, not so much as you get older, because when you get older, you're sort of starting with something. But, I've done a lot of teaching as well in my time. And there's that kind of sense of day one, you go into art school, day one. It's like, where do you start? It's like, you start from nothing and you could bring in everything or anything, especially as a sculptor. So for me, this is a kind of statement of intent, I guess. And then it's not like a sort of repudiation of the past or anything, but it's more like, you have to start from somewhere. And then also, I think it relates to the idea of the expanded practice as well, which, I think characterizes what I do. Sometimes when I look on my work, now that I'm in my 50s, you sort of like, how did that relate to that? And what was I doing here? There's all these kind of sort of collection of objects and things, and, and maybe it looks incoherent, but for me, the idea of being a sculptor is that you can bring anything into the work, the starting point is anywhere, and and the material is anything that's to hand. And so that idea of an expanded practice is really important to me.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next slide, I think it's just that idea of you looking forward, as a young artist, so kind of important to kind of what's ahead, and the idea of an expanded practice and kind of making your way, I guess, in this world of sculpture. Okay, so that kind of brings us on to I chose this object, which is, from the next year, 1998, Actualization, which has a really interesting presence, I think. It consists of two glass spheres, as you can see, one black, the other white. I believe that you showed it actually in two exhibitions. So I think first one in New York in 2006 called Strange Powers, which explored ideas of art and the occult. And then the second show in 2009 at Tate St. Ives, which was called The Dark Monarch, Magic and Modernity in British Art. And I believe it was placed near a work by Barbara Hepworth, which I think is really interesting. I believe that this kind of was the point at which you kind of turned, I guess, more formally towards sculpture.
Yeah.
So I wondered, Eva, what was it at this point, if you could maybe speak to that led you to then turn from kind of 2D, as we've seen in the work previously, to then actually starting to engage with, 3D work?
Probably confidence. I just don't think I had any confidence with materials prior to that. I mean, in many ways, I still don't have all that much confidence with materials, but I guess I got to a point where I didn't really care. My art education was really very based around, I mean, I did make sculpture, but it was also quite two-dimensional. I mainly concentrated on printmaking when I was doing my degree in Belfast. And then I think at the point where I was in Glasgow and also on my master's in London, there was a sort of really quite a sort of formalist sort of reliance on especially sort of photography, and that kind of quite, it's funny because it's quite different to what we're seeing now, which is kind of very personal work, but a sort of sense of a kind of hard-edged kind of a lot of photography, text, you know, and I sort of felt like maybe that was what I was supposed to be doing. And it took me quite a while to realize that that was not what I wanted to do at all, you know. So it's kind of getting to know what, because, you know, being an artist is like finding something that sort of you're kind of willing to give, you know, probably, you know, all your working day, every day to, you know, if you're not actually interested in what you're doing, you can't continue with it, you know, it just won't work. So I think, you know, those sort of formative years of kind of, I suppose, stepping into the sort of thing of being an artist outside of the institution, you know, outside of the sort of context of the art school or something, is really finding out like what aspect is it within what you want to do that actually really will take up all your time. And so this work was is, you know, it's really small. They're the size you'd imagine a crystal ball would be, you know, hand size. They are made of lead crystal, and really they were actually initially shown in Finland at a gallery called Titanic in Turku in Finland, an artist-run space. And I had produced these sort of photographs, which were sort of photographs of drawings for that show, which were called visualization, which are based on sort of a certain kind of utopian image that was sort of very popular in sort of poster artwork at the sort of infancy of mass-produced sort of digital type images, often used for sort of backgrounds in early games, you know, computer games, sort of vaguely Minecrafty looking things. And I'd sort of taken pictures and made paintings from these sort of images, and they were called visualization. And then these sculptures essentially were with it, and they were called actualization. And then I suppose I kind of continued more in the vein of actualization, like making things exist, than visualization. I mean, they go hand in hand, but it was a sort of move for me that felt really important. And it also coincided with me starting to teach at the Slade, where I taught with Phila de Barlow, who had a really big influence on me, and especially an influence on sort of giving me confidence around sort of saying, you know, yes, sculpture, yes, this is what I want to do, you know, in that sense of like a kind of willingness to try things and, you know, potentially to fail with them as well.
Yeah. And I think it's that kind of that degree of experimentation that really kind of comes through. I mean, throughout everything you've done, but the next slide, I think, shows how you were kind of willing to really engage with, you know, moving in all these kinds of different directions. So this is a work that really kind of stood out to me, Burning Tire from 2004. And, you know, it's completely sort of taking us in a new direction, using ready-made elements. And I wondered if you could maybe tell us a little bit about where you were in your career when you made this, and what prompted you to engage with, you know, these kinds of found, or what we might call manufactured objects.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't tend to use hardly any pre-existing objects in my work, but this one was just like, it sort of really just came together. You know, I'd made quite a lot of works with incense. You know, you can see the relationship between perhaps the incense and the crystal balls. They're both kind of associated with a sort of spiritual searching, or a sense of, you know, esoteric kind of religiosity, or I don't even know if that's a word, but sort of, you know, the sort of idea of something beyond earth, or beyond, you know, the sort of empirical experience. And then the tire obviously is something very grounded, but then the burning tire is also a kind of, it sort of has a symbolic power that relates to protest, you know, potentially rioting, sort of, you know, urban dysfunction, rubbish tips, you know. And throughout my work, and actually I think particularly in the last few years, this sense of kind of the sort of idea of the contemporary ruin, or the sort of disposable, sort of non-disposable objects that sort of are left over always. You know, I've made a lot of work with water bottles, you know, beer cans, Coke cans, polystyrene. And for me, the tire is kind of another object like that. It's something that sort of has a use value, and then the use value is finished, but yet the object sort of hangs around. You know, they get repurposed into sandals and all kind of things. And then, yes, there's the kind of protest idea. And so with this, I really wanted to, because I've always been interested in protest, and at the time I was making quite a lot of sort of these kind of woven images, which interspersed kind of brought together geometric sort of elements with images of people engaged in protest. And that's something that sort of has always had it's sort of always run a line through my practice in different ways, the idea of sort of social space. And with this, I wanted to sort of bring a kind of spiritual aspect to the idea of protest or burning or something, you know, that it's not necessarily about violence. Perhaps it's about a search for something. But also, you know, in the simplest of ways, you know, sometimes something just goes together and it's right, you know. And for me, that piece just worked like that, you know.
Yeah. And again, you know, I'm really struck by your ability to just engage with this whole kind of range of materials. And this next piece, which was from 2014, Restless One, again, just shows this kind of the sheer range and diversity. I mean, here we've got aluminium combined with perspex and paint. And I wonder, Eva, if you could say a little bit more about your relationship to materials, and how actually in particular using something like perspex allows you to, I guess, achieve those different sort of formal effects and surface finishes. Because what I'm seeing here is almost a kind of, there's an element of kind of perfection about it, in a way that, you know, when we're looking at the other images of the other works, this kind of goes beyond in this kind of perfect surface finish. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very good at perfection, but the perspex is like a very good shorthand to perfection, you know, until inevitably it gets scratched or, you know, attracts dust or whatever, because those are the realities of kind of sculpture. It's like there's always something, you know, because I mean, your questions with sculpture are always like, first of all, like, all right, well, how do I get that to stand up? Or how do I get that to do it? You know, you're asking things to do things that are not within their, you know, they're not really part of their designed functionality. But with the perspex, I suppose I've always been interested in how we look at things, you know, which is very basic for an artist. But with the perspex, it gave me this perfect kind of surface that it creates depth, you know, and it reflects, but it reflects in a way that you're not really seeing just yourself, or it's not like a mirror. It's like, well, it's a dark mirror, it's a black mirror. But within the space here, you're sort of creating a kind of confusion about the materiality, and a confusion about, you know, what is in front of what, you know, what, which bit is in the foreground, which bit is in the background. And for me, that sense of kind of visual complexity is something that is present in many works, because part of the joy of making sculpture or making art is the idea of engaging in a form of communication that isn't, you know, didactic or polemic. It's actually sort of quite pure, you know, it's not about telling somebody something. It's about maybe making them aware of, you know, materiality of their body in relationship to the object, of their eye, and the sort of communication that's happening between the eye and the object. You know, I often would liken it to a kind of devotional way of looking, where, you know, people are looking at something, you know, potentially perhaps a religious object or something like that, or a mandala, where there's both the desire to see the object or the image, and then a desire to somehow maybe find a way kind of through it to some kind of transcendent reality. And I suppose along with the ideas of protest and all of those things, which are about transcendence as well, and about change and utopianism, you know, this sense of a kind of, you know, visual enlightenment or sort of heightened experience of our senses is something that really, you know, in certain works, I sort of feel like, you know, I like to go into quite far. And with this series of works, I think that was something I was really exploring. And also I should say, actually, the title as well is Restless Eye. so I've used that in a lot of titles. The titles are quite important to me, that they kind of move around a bit, you know, so the restless eye could be me, or it could be the eye, you know, and that sense of the sort of doubling of I and the eye is, yeah, I mean, the titles, I kind of love doing the titles. They make, for me, the work, it changes the work in a way that if something's called like, you know, steel perspex construction A is quite different to restless eye, you know, there's a sort of, I guess, an associative power that comes with the words because we cling to words, you know.
And I guess here what is striking is that kind of disruption of surface as well, with these kind of almost lightning strikes of color, you know, which kind of, yeah, just disrupt that kind of sense of perfection. And I'm gonna move on to our next slide. And I really love this piece. And when I was kind of, you know, thinking about your work, engaging with it, and preparing, you know, for this conversation, this is something that really stood out to me. When I think of your work, this is the kind of object that comes into my mind's eye. But what I particularly love about it is the fact that, you know, how you are playing with the idea of the plinth, the base, how this becomes part of the object. And in particular, you know, this use of paint, how it drips or bleeds down the plinth and onto the floor. And in a way, to me, that sort of seems to contradict, I think in some ways, perhaps darkly, even playfully, that kind of minimalist control and precision that, you know, we get in this assemblage. And I think sort of takes it onto another level from what we've seen in the previous work. So I wonder if you could say a little bit more about, you know, the combination of materials, you know, that you're using here, and actually what kind of experience do you feel that they evoke?
It's quite sort of weird to make a sculpture and then essentially kind of ruin it. So, well, it's not ruined, obviously, but it's, you know, for me, it's better. But it's like there is something about making something that seems so perfect and then kind of, yeah, like spilling something all over it. So actually it's rubber that's poured over it because I really wanted something that would arrest in its drip and go off really fast. So yeah, I just really wanted to disrupt it. And I really like the idea of the sort of, yeah, you know, it's like when you see a ruined modernist building or there's something kind of almost extra romantic about it because it's ruined, because it's not as, it's sort of not achieving its perfection, but then it's kind of, it becomes kind of more human or more softened within that kind of corruption of the form. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to do a show one time where I just pour rubber over everything, you know. There is that sort of sense. And as well, the other thing that happens as an artist as well is you can get into this kind of hole where there's a sort of tyranny of taste, you know, and you keep on springing back to things that you like. And sometimes you have to kind of just disrupt that in some way.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's interesting how, you know, how the plinth here becomes part of the work. And then in the last slide to conclude this section, this is so very different because we're, you know, we're moving into a work that has a very different, to me, it seems a very kind of different tone or feel about it. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of touch upon with you is your use of color, because we've seen, you know, we've kind of seen glimpses of it in the works that we've just looked at. But they predominantly use these kinds of, I guess, black, you know, darker tones. And here we've got something completely different, you know, pale pastel pink. So I wondered if you could maybe tell us a little bit about your reasons for kind of changing things up here. And incidentally, this is a work from 2022, so, you know, takes us pretty much up to your current practice.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you look through my work over the years, you know, black painted artworks is a really strong feature of my work, and that's definitely my kind of comfort zone. So, but then this wasn't just a sort of effort to go out of that. It was also about the sort of, you know, I always was making these things with this quite kind of hard edge where there was a sense of the parameters of the work, and I was interested in using a different palette to sort of make the works less visible in a way, to sort of dissolve them in a way, so that there was, I mean, again, it's all about looking and about how we perceive something, how we move around. I mean, these works in many ways are sort of like, they're anti-geometric, they're organic forms, and they sort of, but yet they're sort of wholly abstracted as well. But I really wanted something that sort of felt like it was kind of sort of hovering almost, you know, hovering into existence. So rather than being like a, you know, like a, yeah, rather than being like a kind of, you know, a slash across something, it was more like, I think it might be a Joni Mitchell album. Is it like a chalk mark in a rainstorm? Is that a Joni Mitchell album? I think it might be. But, you know, something that's sort of hovering, that it's sort of almost vibrating into existence. And this work was the first piece I made like this. Also, they're on these white plaster plinths. I mean, you mentioned the plinths before. They're always super important to me. I always consider the supports for the sculptures as part of the sculptures. If they go on and they're shown in different ways, you know, that's their life in the world beyond me. But in the studio, when I'm putting together a show, I can't think of an instance where I've just said, yeah, just put it on a plinth, get any plinth. It just, that's not how it works for me. So with these plaster plinths, you know, they are sort of mimicking the kind of plaster molds that you use in slip casting for ceramics. So I also kind of wanted a sense of like, I guess it's just a sculptural, well, it's a super sculptural reference. The idea that potentially you're looking at something sitting on top of a mold that might have contained the sort of means of its production. So, you know, for me, it doesn't really matter if anyone else got that, but for me, that sense that like the sort of making and the processes are referred to within the support, because essentially the process is the support for the piece. It doesn't exist without it. So there's a kind of, and that I suppose echoes the kind of open or closed form of the piece as well.
And I guess the interesting surface quality that I think you can just about make out in the slide here, I guess again, you know, the trace of making and that sort of visibility, I guess, of your hand is interesting in this piece. Eva, I wondered if we could now take a look at or think about some of your exhibition projects as well, because your work has been the subject of numerous solo exhibitions around the world, including at Tate Britain London, the Modern Institute Glasgow, the National Sculpture Centre in Dallas, which we'll come to shortly, the Australian Centre for Contemporary Art in Melbourne, as well as galleries in New York, Switzerland, Spain, Italy, Germany, just to name a few. So I'd love to talk in a bit more detail about these projects with you. And I wondered if we could perhaps start with your 2007 show at the South London Gallery. So the slide here represents an installation view from one of the spaces, one of the main gallery spaces. And I'm really intrigued by the kind of sculptural landscape that greets us when we look at this. The array of different forms, contrasting scales, the range of materials, and also your use of both walls and floor. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about what you sought to do here.
I think what I really wanted to do was present a kind of multiplicity of forms within a single space, so that there was a sense of a kind of overall identity, but also a sense of kind of diversity of manifestation, if that makes sense. Like sometimes I feel like the sculptures are all different versions of the other, of another one, just manifesting in a different way. So I really wanted to combine the kind of soft materials and the materials that pretend, and the sort of, I suppose, a way of making that maybe relates to the body, but is kind of quite opaque within that. So I have these kind of leather, I suppose you could call them kind of head forms, which again, they come up throughout the work. And then with the piece leaning against the wall, there's it's sort of almost like a kind of cracked frame. And then the forms on that again are plaited. And then there's the hoops, which have a sort of soft form. And then the sort of spirally structures are kind of echoed then in, there's a sort of squiggly piece in the background, which, well, there's two squiggly pieces in the background. But yeah, I suppose I just wanted to bring everything together. I mean, it's a long time ago, that show now, but it is really nice to look at the works and sort of to see where they kind of led to and what came from them. And it's the thing that really strikes me in looking at that now is how much my kind of color sort of, I suppose my comfort level with color has evolved. I feel sculpturally, any of those forms could still exist within the work I do now. But I feel that I would never have sort of used color in the way that I do now in any of those works. I think I felt like it would somehow be unserious, whereas now I wouldn't care about that. So yeah, I mean, this was the first really big show I did. Yeah, sort of bringing all of those things together. It was a really important show for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think actually I've chosen for our next slide, I thought there were some interesting kind of resonances, I guess, affinities, continuities, but also actually, again, we can see this idea of you sort of working towards expanding your practice in the show that you did in 2017 called Alternative to Power at the New Gallery Walsall in England. So I have another installation view here. One of the pieces that, you know, immediately kind of stuck out to me when I looked at this image of the gallery space is the piece Red Sun, which, you know, really dominates the wall. And I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that is mounted onto the wall rather than.
It's on a stretcher, but it's made from leather, sort of knotted across a stretcher. Yeah, I've used leather a lot in the work, and I made a few pieces like this. And it's funny as well, when you've been working for quite a long time, you sort of forget pieces you've made, and it's actually really nice to look at them again because you think, oh, I sort of forgotten I did that, you know. And yeah, it's funny, it doesn't look so big here, but it was really big. It was like 250 centimeters, I think, across that piece. That's a lot of leather. But that sense of sort of, you know, because as well, you mentioned about having things on the walls. One of the real kind of conundrums of being a sculptor is how you approach the walls. So I've done shows where I've had nothing on the walls, and then I've done shows where there's something on the walls, but it's always like, how do you do that? Like, because I'm not going to make a painting, and I can't paint, and I have made prints, and I've done quite a lot of prints actually, but you know, there's a lot of things I would like to do that take the format of being on a wall, but it feels quite a tricky area for me as a sculptor. I mean, I actually, over the last few years, I've done quite a lot of work in tapestry, and that has been a really good sort of way for me to work with something kind of two-dimensional, but with this fully kind of made and crafted feel. So I think that, you know, this piece Red Sun, I think that was the only wall piece in that exhibition actually, and it was a big show. There's a lot of rooms, and I think that it just felt like the right counterpoint to the other works in this room. And yeah, so
It has a, I mean, it has a really interesting, to me, when I look at it, it's the sculptural quality, but it has a pictorial quality. And there, you know, there is a kind of element of representational, a kind of representational dimension, which I think is, you know, really, really interesting. What really kind of strikes me about the next installation view from the same exhibition is actually how here it's not just about, say, you know, the volume and mass, but also this kind of, I guess, what we might call spatially commanding verticality in this kind of array. And I think the piece, I'm right in saying, is called an array that we see there in the foreground, you know, with these kind of toppled columns, just, you know, this kind of marvelous assemblage of different forms. I wonder if you could tell us what sort of effect you hope to create by combining these different elements. and actually how far you see this work as, you know, functioning as a kind of unified work, or is it, or do you see it as a collection of, I guess, potential independent elements as well?
Yeah, I see it as a collection. I felt like it was, you know, initially when I was thinking about this work, I was sort of thinking this piece, I was thinking that, like, you know, as you work over time as an artist, it's like you kind of develop a lexicon or a sort of alphabet of objects that you are familiar with. And then you keep on bringing in things that you aren't familiar with. And I felt like this was a collection of the things I was familiar with. And it was like the sort of, to quote, is it Donald Rumsfeld or something? It was like the known knowns, like the things that I knew, but I didn't know how they would come together to potentially make a third, more unknown thing. And so, yeah, I felt like this was almost like a display or a kind of library, or like it was like a demonstration of the forms that had occupied me in my practice. And I felt that in this exhibition, which actually felt really pivotal for me, that within this exhibition, I introduced quite a lot of things that have become more central. And I felt like it was like bringing together, I suppose, it felt like quite a kind of turning point in my work. And I felt like this sort of kind of brought together the kind of old and the new. And also this is the first time as well I made seating in an exhibition, which is something I always do now, which I think is a way of sort of centering the viewer and sort of giving them access to the materiality of the work, because I make the seating and then they can, you know, touch it and get access to that, the sort of what is it, what does it feel like? And then also it's like saying, you know, this is for you, you know, you are welcome here. The work may not look welcoming, it may look forbidding, it may be sort of spiky or sharp or whatever, but the idea that the work is there and the space is a social space for humans is important to me. So yeah, this was a really important show to me. And I should say as well that it was made at the time when the Brexit vote was going on in the UK. And so the title for me was, you know, was really important. You know, I felt very, distressed would be too strong a word, but the sort of levels of disillusion around things at that time. I mean, they haven't really improved, it's true to say, but, you know, there was definitely a sense of sort of division in the country at that time. So, yeah, I think I'm quite aware of time, actually.
Yeah, so I am going to move us on to the next show that you did in 2018, Eva. I wondered if you could, I was really intrigued by the title Iceberg Hits. Could you briefly tell me where that title came from before we head on to our next slides?
Iceberg Hits. So there was a piece in the show called Iceberg Hits as well, which was a 6-meter long kind of punch bag covered in fabric I printed, which you'll see in the pieces for Venice. And the title really explicitly came from the idea that, like, I suppose like thinking about the Titanic or something, you know, the iceberg hitting. And it was at the time of all the Me Too stuff really beginning. And I felt like, you know, yeah, it's like when the iceberg hits, you know, it's like you're only seeing like 10% of the problem, you know, like it was like a sort of sense of kind of reckoning. And you know, I suppose it goes with the alternative to power title as well, you know, the sense that, like, you know, things need to change, you know. And so the iceberg hits, you know, specifically the punch bag piece, which, yeah, and then again this piece Border as well, this was sort of just after the whole kind of Brexity thing as well. And yeah, they did feel informed by current events. You know, obviously I'm Irish, and there was a, you know, so much of the kind of discussion around Brexit and those things, it felt like the concerns of the people of Northern Ireland and Ireland had really been, you know, actually, I mean, well, I believe completely forgotten in the way it was approached, you know. And as somebody Irish who'd lived in Northern Ireland for a while, you know, all through the whole Brexit thing, you know, you're going, what are they going to do about that? You know, and it was just never mentioned. And then, so there was the Me Too thing, there was the whole Brexit thing, and so yeah, you know, I don't tend to make work that's political, but you know, politics touches your work, you know, and politics isn't something removed. I mean, say politics sounds, but it's not politics, it's just reality. It's like things that intersect with your work, you know, and
Yeah.
this time that felt very pertinent.
So interestingly then, and you're talking about all of that and that sort of you know, really challenging, actually really difficult social context. And what we have here, I guess, is the introduction of a kind of sculptural wall into your practice, which I think is really interesting. And I'm just going to flick to the next slide, because I find that the kind of the pairing, the juxtaposition of these two works really compelling. The work
Punchbag
on...
was in the same room actually,
Oh,
the
okay.
slide as well. So yeah, I mean, this space was, I guess, I think for me was one of the kind of, it was like 3 sculptures, all of which had a kind of very strong, quite confrontational kind of element. And the wall in particular has become like something that I am very much still kind of working with in the work. And it was also, you know, the other thing is the kind of it also related to the sort of coercive architecture that we see in our cities now, you know, because of terrorist attacks and things where, you know, there's like, you know, blocks put in places and, you know, ostensibly they're temporary, but they obviously have become permanent. And that's sort of what I call kind of hazard architecture. You know, I grew up in Dublin in Dún Laoghaire by there's a large ferry port. It doesn't operate as a ferry port anymore, but that kind of sort of architecture of transit, of sort of control, you know, where there's sort of barriers and there's the kind of maritime sort of signaling, you know, where everything's sort of around, you know, you go this way, you go that way, and the sort of stripes and the, you know, the sort of landscape of that kind of sort of signposting. And then the sort of thing about the kind of hazard architecture and sort of anti-terrorist architecture all kind of coalesced in this very simple piece. But I think that's something that's become increasingly present in the work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And actually we see in the next show that you did, 2018 again, so this was a show at ACCA, the Australian Centre for Contemporary Art, called Cosmos. You're using the same forms again, but I wonder if you could speak briefly, Eva, to what you were doing here, because again, I find this particularly intriguing, because actually it's almost like one of those kind of tile puzzles that isn't quite, you know, it's not quite solved with these, you know, I think especially the voids that you've kind of cut into this piece, and that gives us the sight lines through to actually the work, which we'll be looking at in the next slide. So I wonder if you could say a few words about this.
I suppose it's kind of like 3 things, isn't it? A work like this, it's kind of like a design, like a visual kind of design that's, you know, a bit like the tangrams, which I think are the puzzles you're talking about. And then it's a blockage, so it's blocking your way into the space, you have to negotiate it. And then it's a sculpture, it's, you know, a wall. And actually it has been shown outside as well, this piece. So it's, you know, it's been kind of in a public space and in a gallery. And, you know, I like the idea as well that, you know, when you go in somewhere, that especially with sculpture, it's like you have to kind of make people negotiate the space. You think about how they travel through it, the decisions they might take. You can't really see here, but you could go the other way. But also in terms of the sort of the pattern and the idea of disruption, I think that sense that something hasn't quite come together is really, I guess it's just really satisfying in how it's not satisfying. You sort of imagine movement within the piece. You know, those puzzles where you get like a frame and you have all these tiles and you have to move them around, you know. I feel like that sense of that sort of there could be a possibility of resolution but you know, what would it achieve? You know, like if you could push one block this way and one block the other way, like that sense that of open-endedness. So it's kind of a wall, but it's not finished. Could it be finished? Would it matter if it was finished? Could it continue? You know, and that I think sense of continuousness within sculpture is really interesting to me. I sort of usually refer to it as episodic form, where again, this piece here, you know, there's sort of a certain amount of objects here. I've shown this piece again where I've had twice as many objects. I could show it with less, I could show it with more. The idea that something is unbounded in a way, you know, one of the artists I'm really interested in is Brancusi, and obviously his piece, The Endless Column, where there's a sense like, you know, you could just keep going, you know, and the idea that something can be additive or subtractive, you know, that there isn't a, there's no sort of boundary. Sorry, I just said that. But even with the forms like we were looking at before, like Madonna or the piece with the rubber poured over it, you know, yeah, they stop at a certain point, but because of the nature of the making, where it's like there's a sort of very obvious sort of join or accumulation, you know, I like to think that there's a sort of potential for something almost becoming continuous, you know, that it could expand, it could colonize, it could retract, you know, that there's a open-endedness to the work.
And I guess we really see that, actually. We see those ideas, don't we, coming out in this work, which I think is even more arguably kind of experimental, called the Sacrificial Lair. And it's basically, what, two very large dissecting curtains. So I'll let you kind of describe it.
Quite
but
tricky
this idea of the sort of barrier, you know, the sort of...
well, permeable barrier, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was just the galleries at ACA are really interesting because there's like 5 of them, and one is absolutely massive, and the others are all pretty massive. And you have to kind of pass through a sort of one to the other to the other. And I really wanted to make something. I'd made something like this a bit in the past. It was a bit like those curtains you get, you know, like you used to get them in butchers or holiday homes, you know, to keep flies out. But I really wanted to make something that had this sense, you know, I guess it's a bit like the wall, that you sort of become aware of you sort of moving through the space, and something shifts and something changes. Yeah, so obviously I did a project with a choreographer, Joe Lloyd, for this as well. And so with this piece, it was sort of diagonally divided the space in an X. And I mean, it was a complete, you know, mind meld, sort of meltdown to work out the sort of all of the layers and all of the cutting. But they were all hung so that as you moved through the spaces, the colors changed. And so you were in slightly different spaces each time in terms of the sort of manifestation of the same sort of screen, I suppose. And then as you walk through, there's a sort of, you know, it was a very kind of bodily kind of experience, you know, this creation of a space that transforms the architecture. And it's something I'd like to do again, actually. I really, I kind of really loved it in a very sort of simple way, you know, even though it was incredibly complex to make. And then working with, so I have worked with choreographers in the past. I'm very interested in working, you know, potentially for opera or for stage or something, to try and, you know, create a whole sort of kind of scenography for action. And I through the gallery there, I got in touch with this choreographer, Joe Lloyd, who's really interesting, and asked her would she make a piece for the exhibition. And I didn't get involved in that because I'm not a choreographer. It was very much that, like, I would do costumes. And so you can see some of the costumes here. I think this is another picture with the costumes afterwards.
Yeah.
And then that she would sort of, you know, because I like the idea that, like, we didn't really collaborate. I provided her with something, and then she provided something within that was her work, because that's her expertise, you know, that's what she does and what she organized. And it was just really exciting to do that with her. And, you know, I'm really hope that we might have a chance to work together again. I'm doing a show in Australia next year, so you never know.
That's amazing, Eva. And I wanted to briefly touch on the project that you did at the Venice Biennale, which was another really kind of exciting a kind of assemblage of work. So this is a shot from that space. And I think we can kind of see many continuities with some of the exhibitions you've done before, in some of the forms we're seeing, but also some real departures. And again, this idea of a kind of, I guess, sort of physical interactivity, if I can call it that, particularly if we look at a piece like this using these kind of weathered and worn looking blocks. I wonder if you could briefly kind of tell us what it was like actually, producing this work. And obviously it must have been a huge honor for you to be, selected to represent Ireland as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing to do Venice Biennale, and Emer Walsh is representing Ireland, opened yesterday. So, to be part of a sort of, something that relates to your country, I think, especially when you perhaps, haven't been living there for a long time. My relationship with Ireland is really close, but I'm always, going backwards and forwards. So it was really special and amazing to do the work there, and to work with Mary Cremen, the curator, and to sort of, I suppose, have that kind of really super broad audience for your work, because so many people go there, and not just art people, but like, it's so public in a way that I really wanted to create a kind of social space within the pavilion, so that there was a sense that not only were you looking at the work, but you could stay in the work. That's something I'm really interested in sort of increasing how long we spend with art, so that there isn't just this kind of look from the door, sort of to get the kind of picture, but there's a sense that there is something that maybe wants to, you want to be drawn into it, you want to sort of participate in a way. And I don't mean a sort of push button way. I mean, like with this, people obviously could sit on this, and it was called Amphi, which relates to the idea of the amphitheater, obviously, the idea of being a spectator, being sort of, then if you are sitting there and someone else comes in, then their sort of response to the work and their sense of it as a social space becomes more active. So I really wanted it to be kind of active in that way. And again, I had the wall piece there, and we had all these cast cans and bottles, which I suppose, echoes back to the tire, and that sense of a kind of a border or a barricade, or a kind of, detritus, or, things left behind, and I really wanted to bring together the kind of formal and the informal in the space, and create a kind of a sort of whole work that sort of, had a kind of hard edge to it with perhaps the triangular forms, but then sort of, it's not softer because they're actually sort of quite hard forms, but with the graffiti and the type of painting, they sort of speak to, I suppose, a more kind of weathered, or sort of, a kind of presence that's sort of in the process of degrading or disappearing. And I wanted that sort of sense of ambiguity between the works. So the piece with the wall there is called Drift. And then this piece was called Amphi. And then the other piece were Princess and Spectre. So I felt they were sort of almost like characters within a certain kind of mise en scene or something. So there was a sense of kind of wholeness to the whole thing. And the title was called The Shrinking Universe, because there's something weird in Venice where you go there and it's like there's this bizarre kind of sense of mapping the world because of the nature of the way everything is labeled in relation to its to each country, and so there's different hierarchies within that. So you get all the sort of major colonial powers are in the Giardini, where they own their pavilions, and the sort of post-colonial countries tend to sort of have to rent what they can get, and there's a sort of strange kind of redrawing of the map, and sort of different sort of, I guess, kind of neighborhoods almost globally sort of appear while you're working there, because, you know, people see the exhibition, but then there's this huge period beforehand when you're sort of making it, and there's all these artists there sort of, you know, on their knees with sort of, you know, a paintbrush in one hand and climbing up a ladder, and there's this sort of weird community as well. So I wanted the title to reflect that, and then also the sort of anti-scientific idea where we know in scientific terms the universe is expanding, but we experience it as shrinking due to how we receive information now. So there's something so different in our sort of psychic and emotional experience of the world to the sort of scientific reality of the, you know, kind of quantum side of the world we actually occupy.
Well, talking about sculpture disintegrating and becoming mere matter, I wonder if we could talk about some of your commissions. And I'm very aware that we have a few minutes, well, a few more minutes left of our conversation, but I'm really keen to touch upon this piece with you, Eva, which I know is kind of very close to your heart. Boys in Sculpture from 2012. It was a Whitechapel Gallery commission that I'll let you talk about it. I watched the film in its entirety, and I was just struck by how the boys who were, you know, kind of, I guess, let loose in this gallery, they looked very carefully for what, maybe 10 or 11 minutes, and then suddenly everything kind of descended into chaos. It was a very hilarious viewing experience, I have to say. Could you say a few words before I play an excerpt from the film for our audience? Could you say a few words about the commission, how this came about, and why it's so important to you?
Yeah, because obviously I'm not known for working in film, but this is a piece I'd wanted to make like forever, like for such a long time. I really wanted something that sort of was like kind of push the limits of interaction or social space. And also, you know, because I taught a lot in art schools, and then I went to a girls' school, and I was always struck through my experiences of being at art school myself, having gone from a, you know, an all girls Catholic school to art school, and then also through teaching in the sort of different ways that I felt the you know, and I know that people have different ways they like to talk about gender and sex and everything, but I'm just going to say in this instance, boys and girls, or young women and young men, sort of approached the sort of beginning of making. You know, so I touched on that at the beginning with the nothing behind me exists, and the sense of like confidence with materials, perhaps, or the sense of, I don't know, like a sort of sense of place, or a sense of that they could take up space, that, you know, you could just get on with it. You know, there wasn't a fear of failure, I felt. You know, this is all very general, but it is from my own experience, you know. And I really wanted to make an exhibition, and then to ask some boys to look at it as long as they could, which is all I said to them. And then when they felt they couldn't explore with their eyes anymore, that they could explore it in different ways. And that's really all I said to them. But then as well, it isn't about like destructiveness, really. It's also about, there were so many things, if you see the whole film, like some of the boys start remaking things, older boys then behave quite aggressively towards them in a few instances, certain boys copy each other, they sort of seem to form alliances, even though, you know, there were sort of two groups of boys and they didn't know each other. They're all primary school age boys, but there's a big shift between the younger and the older in terms of what I would call kind of, I suppose, gender normative behavior. I mean, those things I wasn't expecting so much, but I found that really fascinating. But one of the things I also really wanted to sort of touch on is the sense of, there's a sort of stigmatization that happens to boys as they enter adolescence, you know, and, you know, nobody really wants a large group of boys around. you know, if you're in a gallery and these 12 boys came in, you would like be taking a sharp intake of breath and would have your eye on them, you know, and that sense of kind of just letting them enact was something I really wanted to do. You know, I really wanted it to be quite kind of, well, I actually didn't know what they would do, but, you know, they really went for it. And for me, it was an amazing experience. The boys were amazing. And yeah, I feel like it's something I come back to again and again. And it's not like I want to make a girls in sculpture. This is what I'm interested in. I'm really interested in masculinity and making. I think perhaps because I come from, you know, I came to making from a sort of, you know, a sort of especially school experience where we, you know, we didn't have access to doing any kind of woodwork or any of those things. My own kids do, you know, but where I went to school, like girls just didn't do that, you know. And that sense of sort of a kind of freedom around the materials. And I should say that we also used the materials that were left at the end of this then to do workshops. So it kind of went on and on and on and really pushed the limits of interactivity. And then I should just also say as well, because I also have 3 sons. So in a way, and they were actually quite young. They were younger than these boys at the time I made this. But, you know, in a way, that is also the parameters of my world a lot of the time. So, you know, boys in sculpture and making a masculinity are things that are really important to me. And it's quite funny, the film as well. So.
It's great. Well, let's view it's a very short extract, so let's view this.
Okay.
Okay, that's oops. And then this is the sort of the aftermath, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So Eva, I'm really aware that we have a few minutes left, and there are some really wonderful slides that I wanted to just kind of take our audience through, just to kind of, you know, bring the talk to a really nice conclusion. So I wonder, while I kind of flick through these kind of remaining images of some of these wonderful projects that you've been involved in, if you could maybe just say a few words. So obviously we start here with the really exciting Divine Commission that you undertook in 2009. So I'm just going to kind of let you talk a little bit while I go through. Yeah.
With the public sculptures and the bigger pieces like this, I mean, it's just amazing to be given the opportunity as a sculptor to make things on that scale, because I mean, you can't do those things, you know. I'm all for doing things for yourself, but you can't really do those things unless somebody gives you space and budget. And it just allows you to think about your work in the most, I guess, sort of expanded field possible. And it's something I really, really enjoy working on. And also I feel like this one's in a gallery. The next ones really are not, if you want to move on to the next ones.
Yeah. So just to say, because this piece is huge, isn't it? It's over 70 meters, and it's what, 26, composed of 26 triangles that kind of the visitors were kind of encouraged to move through. So then really quite different to something like the Nasher Centre work.
Yeah, this went kind of all around the space. It went over the desk, it went downstairs. And yeah, again, it's like kind of a sort of colonization, you know, like I was talking about the pieces before, you know, they're kind of episodic. It's like they could continue. And with this, you know, there's a sort of sense, it is actually a closed loop, but, you know, there's that sense that it could sort of potentially kind of take over. And I love that sense of kind of, yeah, like create a maze or something, you know, something that you kind of are turning and discovering, you know, and becoming aware of your surroundings. And also, you know, with the stripes, the colors change throughout the piece. And I should say as well, I've made quite a few pieces with the stripy format. I like it because it breaks up the line. It gives a kind of sense of continuous and discontinuous at the same time. but the title comes from, I don't know if you all remember it, but for the American audience, from a TV show that used to be on called Why Don't You Turn Off Your TV and Do Something More Interesting Instead, which was a children's TV show when I was young, when there was only about like 3 children's TV shows. But it always kind of stayed with me. And so when I've made these kind of meandering pieces, they've all taken on this title of Why Don't You? Because they are about, I guess, looking up and being where you are rather than somewhere else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then this is a wonderful piece that you did, King's Cross, London.
So that's in a public park, which is a great location to have a sculpture in because it's open to everyone. And this actually went in right at the beginning of the pandemic, the sort of, the really during the actual lockdown time, right at the beginning when no one could go anywhere. I sort of snuck down on my bike to have a look at it. And bizarrely, one of the only positive things that came out of that time was, I think, our relation to public spaces changed, and actually we really embraced them. And as sort of time has gone on, I think that it has actually become a very active public space and people gather there, and that sense of a kind of open kind of landmark, or again social space that sort of can be interpreted however you want or used how you want, or becomes a meeting place, is something I think that is really important. When I was a teenager in Dublin, if you lived on the south side of the river, you met at the Trinity gates of the university. If you lived on the north side of the river, you met at the Clary's clock of the big department store. And they're kind of landmarks that sort of just, they kind of existed in people's sort of social consciousness as somewhere like at the beginning of something, a night out, or, a day going somewhere. And, I think that public sculpture has a really, I mean, it gets a lot of knocks, public sculpture, and people love it, people hate it, but I do think that it can actually create a place in a way that's actually very open and generous towards its audience, and that's what I'm really interested in relation to these public works.
Yeah, and I think that those aspirations, really, I think, culminate in this work, which I think you might say is the kind of ultimate expression of that kind of social dimension of your work. And it's fabulous. I wonder if you could say more about this, Eva, and what you were doing.
This commissioned for the sort of 100th anniversary of this huge kind of housing estate called Becontree. That was one of the first, I think it was the first kind of housing estate built, to a plan in that way in the UK. And there's a really nice park there, and they commissioned 2 playgrounds, one from me and one from another artist, Yinka Ilori. And I really I'm always interested in sort of geometry, and I really wanted to make something that had this kind of pyramidical structure, which is quite challenging for a playground, but also something that was kind of quite basic, like you go up, you go down, it's not telling you what to do, it's like you decide what you're going to do with it. And as well, because I'm interested in teenagers as well, and how people, I didn't want to make something that just was for the little kids, like the slide was for the little kids, I guess. And then there's a kind of the other sort of sunken pyramid kind of climbing frame. But I suppose the piece for me really is the yellow pyramid. It's like, so much of, if you live in an urban area, playgrounds are used during the day by, parents and small children. But at night, they're kind of some of the only places where young people can meet, when they're too young to go to the pub, or, they haven't got the money to go somewhere, or, they don't want to go to hang out in McDonald's or whatever. And there's that sense of trying to make somewhere that, it kind of maybe fulfills that function as well, that, people could, sit there, on the top, maybe they'd be like, I don't know, making some TikToks, or, drinking, smoking, I don't know, like that, because it's an open playground, it's available, and so that sense of maybe making something that's quite simple, but also perhaps provides a social space for people who, might not have a social space is really important to me also.
So
Yeah.
to end, because we've slightly run over our time, but to end, where do you see yourself going next, or or if you can say, what are your next kind of projects? What's in your mind?
So, well, you know, I'd really like to do more public work. You know, I really kind of, you know, I mean, I have just completed a commission at New College, Oxford, for some gates for a new college, that for the new residences there. And then I've been working on a commission, which is tapestry, actually, for the new Sadler's Wells Dance Theatre in the East End of London. I have some shows. I have a show at Modern Art this year, my gallery in London, and one in Sydney with the Palace in Sydney next year. And then somebody's asked a question here
Oh,
about,
wonderful.
yeah, about am I showing in Scotland? So yeah, in 2025, I'm doing a show at the Fruit Market in Edinburgh. So I'll be working on that through kind of next year. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I'd really like to do over the next few years is to try and work with maybe with theatre or opera in particular, which I really enjoy, to sort of create something where it kind of brings together, I suppose, different types of expertise or making, where it's sort of like as a whole environment, you know. And I've been talking with my friend, the fashion designer Roxanda Ilinchich, who we've collaborated on things before, about, you know, trying to potentially create something in that way. So yeah, I mean, but mainly I just want to keep making.
Of course. I mean, it all sounds so incredibly exciting, Eva. And, you know, as always, this kind of rich, diverse, exciting program. So we are all, waiting with bated breath and excited to kind of see these new works. We have some really interesting questions, actually. So in our very last minutes, somebody has asked about your process, your working process. And about whether drawing is part of your kind of making process. So whether an idea starts out as a drawing, or whether you start with an idea or concept.
So I do both. I mean, I draw regularly, so I would draw in some way, kind of probably most days. And then I'll go and I have a kind of fit of drawing where I'll just draw like through a whole sketchbook. You know, it could be just like, you know, but yeah, I would say I draw quite a lot. I make models a lot. All the time we've been talking here, I've been fiddling with these pieces I just got cut out because I have a model I'm trying to make, and I cut some things out. And, you know, so I'd say I work a lot with models. I also often model things in clay or ceramics. You can see some pieces behind me are made in ceramics, you know. So depending on the scale of the pieces, I usually will make some kind of model. I'll draw, then I'll usually make some kind of model. Because my work is so process based, you kind of can't really just start from, you kind of can't go, there it is, you know. It's like I have to have the form, have the drawing, and then kind of find or apply the appropriate material. So it's quite sort of it tends to follow that sort of format. I do draw on the computer as well, but usually more when I'm doing architectural projects. I always start in the sketchbook.
So somebody else has asked here about whether you have any plans to have a big retrospective in Scotland anytime soon.
Well, it won't be retrospective, but yeah, I have a show at the Fruit Market in Edinburgh in 2025. So that's a big show. So that's what I'll be working on most of next year, I think.
Brilliant. And then finally, do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Don't do it if you're not interested in it. And make sure that your work is always interesting to you, because I think that's really important. You know, you when you make a work, you're trying to find something out, but in a way you're always kind of hoping that the work will maybe answer half of the question you had, so that there's still something left over to make the next work. So I think that that's really important, that you sort of because I think it's really hard when you start, because you've no, like you've no background, you've no hinterland, you know, and then the more you make, the more you make. So I would say keep going, keep interested. And I always say this as advice, glue doesn't really work. So yeah, mechanical fixings. So yeah, but I think as well, like, try to, you know, not to be afraid to do things that perhaps offend your sense of taste as well, you know, that can be a real tyranny, I think, you know, so expand.
Great advice. Well, this, I think, brings us to the end of our conversation today. And I just wanted to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. But most of all, I wanted to thank you, Eva, for, you know, a wonderfully stimulating conversation. And yeah, we're all looking very much forward to seeing your next projects.
Thank you, Lucinda, and thank you everyone who attended the talk. Thanks.